What's good, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast in existence that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin and presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York, One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or any one of the podcasting apps or platforms. I'm your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. In tonight's episode, we're going to dive into some Josh Allen advanced metrics and game tape when it comes to the Josh Allen run game. That was the original topic and focal topic for tonight's episode, and it still is. But I don't know if anybody heard today. It was kind of a story that was swept under the rug, not really given a lot of attention locally or nationally. But Stefon Diggs was not present at day one of Bill's mandatory minicamp. So we're going to lead off with that in the front portion of this episode. There actually surprisingly were a decent amount of details that started circulating once the story broke. You had national media members speaking about it. Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter broke some pieces. We had comments from Josh Allen. We had a comment or two from Sean McDermott. And there's a lot of breadcrumbs and a lot of puzzle pieces to potentially connect. A lot of Charlie Kelly from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, connecting all the dots, trying to figure out who Pepe Sylvia is. That's the kind of situation that we're at right now. And tomorrow at this time, 24 hours from now, hell, 12 hours from now, this could all be a moot point. Stefon Diggs could show up at day two. He could practice. He could give us a phenomenal answer that makes everybody feel nice and warm and secure and comforted. Or we could be in the same position that we're in right now. So again, in the back half of this episode, I got some game tape for you folks, some advanced metrics. For a topic like the graphic shows, the Josh Allen run game, it's one that always gets talked about every single year leading into the offseason. Should you weaponize Josh Allen? How much should he run? When should he run? I feel like that's always a focal point, but not enough is broken down in terms of what kind of runs work and how to break things down into buckets and categories and why they work, the hows and whys, all of those things. So we're going to get into that on the back half of the episode, but in the front portion, like I mentioned, we're going to lead off and talk about Stefon Diggs' absence from day one of Buffalo Bills mandatory minicamp. And as we do here on the show, for those of you joining me live here on this episode, we love the engagement here on this show. So any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, anything and everything that you folks have on your mind. This goes for the back end of the episode, but especially in the forefront topic of this episode with Stefon Diggs. Anything you got on your mind at all, theories, philosophies, ideologies, maxims, whatever, throw them up into the chat. I want to make this front portion as interactive as possible. I'm huge into the interaction piece with the live chat here on Disguise Coverage, especially with a topic as muddy and murky and important and high profile as Stefon Diggs missing a mandatory camp in conjunction with him not reporting to voluntary offseason activities. So anything you folks got, throw it up into the chat, and we're going to dive right into it. And as always, before we get started, if you are here live or if you're watching later, not live, please, 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 and thank you, drop a like on this video. It goes a long way towards affecting the algorithm to help this episode get pushed to the front, track and trend in front of more eyes and ears, help the brand to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. So if you are enjoying this content or if you're excited for this episode, or if you're excited for the Bills, or if you're sad or anxious about the Bills, whatever you got going on, drop a like on this video. It goes a long way, and it's sincerely appreciated by myself and the entire team. Let's get into it. So Stefon Diggs absent from day one of mandatory minicamp. And where's the comment here? So comment from Justin. Justin was here very early before we even went live. Justin said, so I'm guessing Diggs' frustration is with the direction of the offense. Justin followed that up later with, if it's not football related, what is it about? This is funny from Humble Bills fan. Diggs wanted to be on the cover of Madden. He'll get over it. That's fair. Comment here from Uzi saying Diggs is already at the facility. So, and then Justin followed up and said, but why did he leave practice? So again, I'm going to be cycling through all these comments, thoughts, anything and everything we got going on. Also, general rules of the show for those who don't know or who do, just a little refresh. I try to pull up anything and everything that I can. Super chats do get priority. One, because I respect the monetary donation. Two, because the color literally attracts my eyes and alerts me and pulls me away from my notes. So again, a lot of questions. A lot of thoughts, anything and everything with Stefon Diggs being absent. And again, to tie it into the timeline of this offseason for those who don't know or who do, just to kind of put things into perspective, Diggs has not attended the voluntary portions of offseason activities leading up to today. But that's not really out of pocket or out of sorts for him with what he's done previously. And everything, I'll be honest too, like I didn't really think anything of it. I was kind of kicking the can down the road in terms of, he works hard, he grinds, he is a true professional when it comes to honing his craft of being a professional wide receiver. So anything and everything that was related to Diggs not showing up at voluntary OTAs and all that, I kind of just kept kicking it down the road. And I was like, he'll be there at mandatory minicamp. He'll be there for mandatory minicamp. He'll be there for mandatory minicamp. He got the extension that he wanted last offseason. Majority of holdouts or frustrations that lead to not attending mandatory minicamps, majority of them, heavy majority of them are either monetarily driven or contract driven in some way, shape, or form. Player A feels underpaid. Player A wants more term on their deal, something in that way, right? And we don't have any of that with Stefon Diggs. Yes, I know he's volatile. Yes, I know he was yelling at Josh Allen in that Bengals game, which I'm not completely against. I think it's fine for someone to hold someone accountable. I guess it could have been better from an optics standpoint. If people want to say like, oh, it would have been better in the locker room, it would have been better, this and that, blah, blah, blah. When you're a competitor and you're battling on the field, and you want to win a game, sometimes logic and being like, what's the most politically correct way for me to kind of give my teammate a kick in the ass? How can I do that right now? That doesn't go through your head. Diggs is the fiery, competitive guy. He's one of the leaders on this team. And so everything in conjunction with itself and with one another, I didn't really think anything of it with Diggs's potential frustration going into this offseason and him not attending the voluntary portions of camp. But lo and behold, here we are, mandatory minicamp starting today, Tuesday, June 13th, and Stefon Diggs is not present. So his agent, and speaking with Ian Rappaport, again, we're going to go through all these details to kind of put pieces together. I got quotes from Josh Allen. I've got reports from national media and piecing and puzzling all these things together. So Stefon Diggs was at the facility yesterday. He was there this morning, and then he left this morning and was not there for practice, which is weird in and of itself. And then Stefon Diggs' agent reportedly found Sean McDermott's press conference answer to be, quote, a little odd, considering the conversations that were happening behind the scenes, including an in-house situation that they are, quote, on the way to resolving after Stefon Diggs met with Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane and his new wide receivers position coach. So a couple things to unpack there. Sean McDermott, when asked about, and this is a piece too, right? Sean McDermott, when asked about, is he concerned about Stefon Diggs being there at practice day? I forget what the exact verbiage was from the question that he was asked, but Sean McDermott was just like, yeah, I'm very concerned. That can be taken in a multitude of ways. He could be concerned about Stefon Diggs, the person. He could be concerned about Diggs attending practice. I feel like that's a little bit of a fuel to the fire answer from Sean McDermott, but people are really running with that. But that was the comment that Diggs' agent found, quote, to be a little odd, considering the conversations that were happening behind the scenes. And then you go further from what Stefon Diggs' agent said. And he mentions the in-house situation that they are on their way to resolving. Now, I mentioned it earlier. Most of these, in-house situations that you resolve come camp time are contract related. Player thinks they're underpaid. Player wants more term and more security in their contract, some kind of something, right? It's usually financially or monetarily driven in professional sports. That's usually what it is. We don't have that with Stefon Diggs. He is very, very, very well paid. I would feel like he's pretty happy with his contract, considering the extension he got was last offseason. It bumped him up big time in terms of what he was getting. And now we haven't seen any other receiver deals come forward to kind of trump his positioning that maybe might make him feel underpaid or not properly financially compensated. Now, maybe that is in his head somewhere, but I don't think that's it. His agent also came forward and said it's not anything financial. So you have the comment from Diggs' agent saying an in-house situation that they are on their way to resolving. Then you have several quotes from Josh Allen in his presser, who, I don't want to say he looked nervous and shaky with his body language, but he reiterated some things over and over again, was a bit forthcoming with some information and also kind of contradicted himself at times. But some quotes from Josh Allen in regards to Stefon Diggs. He said, quote, we're working on some things that are not football related, end quote. Then another quote from Josh Allen saying, I've got no doubts that we'll figure out what's going on, end quote. I found those two very interesting. The first was right off the bat, he gets asked about the Stefon Diggs situation. He says, we're working on some things that are not football related. So it seemed like he knows what's up, right? There's something going on. It's not football related. We're working on it. But then later he says, I've got no doubts that we'll figure out what's going on. Again, could be just people are in the moment. They're letting it fly off the hip. Maybe they're not using the proper verbiage, anything and everything. It's hard to really dissect someone's verbiage from a live interview and their live answers. But again, working on some things, not football related. Then later, Josh Allen says, I've got no doubts that we'll figure out what's going on. Then another piece from Josh Allen saying, quote, there's some things that could have gone better last year and didn't. I think we're just, as an organization, maybe not communicating the right way. Which again, very interesting comment. I think again, quote, I think we're just, as an organization, maybe not communicating the right way. Then some further pieces from Josh Allen on Stefon Diggs' absence from minicamp. Quote, I know everybody in our locker room loves him, and I don't think we're going to see this as anything different other than a guy that wants to win and somebody that we need to incorporate a little bit better in what we're doing around here. And I got no doubt that we will. I found the quote, incorporate a little bit better in what we're doing around here. I found that part very interesting because from an on the field perspective, Stefon Diggs is an integral piece of the offense week in and week out, regardless of opponent, regardless of scenario. He's a focal point of the offense. Granted, his target share and target rate will drop from time to time for certain games. And I know on the back end of last year, his targets decreased. I believe Eric Turner put out a tweet earlier today that I think his targets went down to like 6.6 per game, which I think was 15th down the stretch. I don't remember what specific game range, but this is a player who year in and year out is towards the top of the league when it comes to overall targets. If we're looking at the 2020 season when the Bills kind of broke out offensively, if you're looking at the regular season plus postseason, Stefon Diggs led the league with 193 targets. Davante Adams was second with 170, and Adams was a target monster in Green Bay. We go into season 2021. Stefon Diggs was fifth in targets with 168. We go to last season, 2022. Stefon Diggs was fifth in targets with 166. Now, yes, that will ebb and flow and will wax and wane. And like I mentioned, the overall rate dropped a bit down the stretch. So maybe there's something to Diggs wanting more consistency with his involvement or his usage in the offense, or maybe he wants more targets when it matters most. We know he showed some frustration in the Detroit game, and I think rightfully so. The Bills offense was kind of plodding along at that point. Diggs wanted to be more involved in the offense, and what happened? Diggs got more involved in the offense in that Detroit game, and the Bills offense picked it up. He scored a touchdown, and the offense kind of took off from there. All these things are possible when you're in speculation season like we are now. But I say all that to say, Allen saying, again, the quote unquote, incorporate a little bit better in what we're doing here with regard to Stefon Diggs. It's hard to incorporate him more or a little bit better from an on the field perspective, given his snap share, given his usage rate, given his targets. He's a focal point of this offense. Ken Dorsey moved him around a lot last year, put him into the slot more. Part of that was due to not having the consistency at the slot position that Cole Beasley afforded them in prior years. But he was moved around a bunch. He's still top 5 in targets, regular season and postseason combined. He had a strong year, again, a productive year, again, for Stefon Diggs. So if you're looking at things, okay, like if you're trying to read between the lines, how can you incorporate him a little bit better from an on-the-field perspective? It seems to go to Justin's comment from earlier, if it's not football related, what is it about? That's the big question. And again, Josh Allen saying we're working on some things. It's not football related. I've got no doubts that we'll figure out what's going on. As an organization, maybe we're just not communicating the right way. And then again, saying about Diggs, he's somebody that we need to incorporate a little bit better in what we're doing here. And I got no doubt that we will. Maybe he's unhappy with Chad Hall leaving, even though that was more Chad Hall's decision. And he's unhappy with the new wide receivers coach. Maybe he's unhappy with the direction of the offense this year. Maybe he's unhappy that he's hearing about the Bills going after DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe he wants to feel like more of a focal point when it comes to the roster construction or the draft pick decision. Maybe he wants to know, and again, this is pure speculation. Maybe he wants to know, like, hey, we're targeting Dalton Kincaid in the first round or something like that. It could be anything. My point with all of it is, if it's not money related, money is complicated in and of itself, right? When someone wants a new contract or more money and they're holding out for it, that I'm not saying that's the easiest thing in the world to resolve, but it's straightforward, right? Player wants more money or better pay. Organization wants to keep that player at as affordable a price as possible without overextending themselves. They either agree or they don't. Player gets traded or released or cut. We see what happens, right? Not that that's simple, but it's straightforward. We know what's going on, right? Opposite sides either meet in the middle or they don't. It is extremely murky when you have a player who's sitting out and all these different pieces are being said by his agent, by the quarterback of the team, and someone who he, in theory, is very close to. And there isn't a monetary piece related to this, again, as we've surmised, but also as Stefon Diggs' agent said. It's so much harder to find a solution when it's not a cut and dry problem. And we don't know what the problem is right now. I'm assuming the Bills do as an organization. I would assume the players know, or Josh Allen knows to some degree, to some level. Maybe he does not. I don't know. But my point with all of it is, I do think there is some cause for concern. Just from, again, and tomorrow at this time, everything could be water under the bridge and it's all good and we're all harmonious and everything's fantastic. But my cause for concern with it all stems from, we don't know what the problem is, but again, if it's not money, just how fixable is it? If he's upset with the new wide receivers coach, I'm just making this up, spitballing. If he's upset with the new wide receivers coach, okay, cool. Do you fire the new wide receivers coach? Like, how does he want that result? If he's upset with how the offense performed down the stretch last year and he wanted Ken Dorsey gone, but Ken Dorsey's back, how do you make Diggs feel better? Do you fire Ken Dorsey? If he's looking at what the plan is for the offense this year and he doesn't like how much he's in the slot or how much he's lined up as the Z receiver or how much 12 personnel they're going to use this year, how do you rectify that? Do you give him what he wants? And, oh, you want to be in the slot more? Okay, we'll put you in the slot more. Oh, you don't want us to run 12? Okay, we won't run 12. Again, I'm just making up all these things. If he's upset with Josh Allen in some way, anything, how do you resolve these issues? How do you make him feel better? It's not easy. Again, if he's upset at the direction of the offense, if he's upset at the coaching staff, if he's upset with things schematically, do you change those things to acquiesce to what he wants? Because that also opens up an entire can of worms. When you start caving to individual player demands that are especially made public, then it opens you up to be vulnerable for future player demands from other players or other positions. And then if you don't bend to that player, then they understand kind of the hierarchy or where they stand. And now you have to figure out, okay, like, do we bend to this player? Do we not bend to this player? If we don't bend to this guy, we're kind of acknowledging that he's a lower tier than this other guy who we bent to. Not to mention just the logistics of all of it, of if you as an organization agree that you're supposed to head in direction A, but you've got a player that thinks direction A sucks and he wants to go in direction B, but he's one of your best players and one of the best players in the league, do you go in direction B? Or do you stay the course and try and convince him that A is going to work? And then if direction A starts to falter or show some cracks a little bit, in the back of your mind, you're going to be like, oh, we didn't score a touchdown on this drive. Diggs is going to say something. Like, Diggs is going to be pissed. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. My point with all of it is I think that's the cause for concern right now. Because I don't think his problem is a problem that is necessarily ready to be solved easily or as straightforward or as cut and dry. It's not as simple as, hey, I want more money. And they're like, cool, we can give you more money. Or it's the opposite. You want more money? Cool. We can't give it to you. Boom, that's it. You're dealing with what seems to be some sort of personal or internal thing for Stefon Diggs. That could be an on the field issue. It could be an off the field issue. It could be something that we haven't even spoken about yet. It could be something personal. It could be something emotional. It could be a multitude of things. But at the end of the day, I think because it's not monetary related, because it's not financially driven, it's a cause for concern because it makes the potential solution that much more complicated, because the issue itself is complicated. Therefore, the solution is going to be complicated. It's not cut and dry. It's not straightforward. And I think that, again, is the cause for concern. When you're dealing with a moving target and a lot of moving parts and you're trying to nail down a solution, that means you got to get all those moving parts to kind of settle. You have to get all these people on the same page. And depending on how big his issue is and how deep his issue goes or his frustrations go, if there are any frustrations or issues, again, we could be completely, off target here and thinking about what has caused Stefon Diggs to miss day one of mandatory minicamp. Depending on how deep any potential frustrations or issues go, the harder it is to solve that problem, the harder it is to, patch together a solution and rectify the issue that's going on at hand. And when you're a team that has championship aspirations and you're a team that was trying to take a jump offensively, despite the fact that they had a good last year from an advanced metrics perspective, and Ken Dorsey did some good things, there were issues that needed to be resolved offensively from a schematic standpoint going into this year and from a roster standpoint. They helped bolster the offensive line a little bit. You bring in Dalton Kincaid, you bring in Trent Sherfield and Deontay Hardy and Damian Harris. They bring all these weapons for versatility and multiplicity, but the core of the offense is Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs. You've got one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL. You've got one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. Both of them are arguably and probably top 5 at their position. That's what makes the offense go. It churns everything from a weapon standpoint, a schematic standpoint, kind of branches off and is an offshoot of having Stefon Diggs. He affords you a lot of that versatility and that multiplicity that you can potentially have given the new roster additions and schematic tweaks that we anticipate the Bills having this year. He's a focal point and a core piece of, again, a team with championship aspirations that's trying to get over the hump. He just also happens to be an extremely competitive, extremely fiery guy, and he's also one of your leaders on and off the field. So, again, we could be sitting here tomorrow and everything's sunshine and daisies and rainbows and all happy and we can all, sleep tight at night. But my biggest concern right now is because the problem is not financially driven, my cause for concern with that is, okay, it's not as straightforward of a solution. Again, money isn't the easiest thing to resolve, but player A wants more money. You can either give it to him or you can't. You either give it to him or you don't. Boom. Those are your options. If it's something else, which it looks like it is, then you have to figure out what's the problem, how deep does it go, and how do you rectify it? And if rectifying it potentially upsets other people or other large-scale mechanisms or pieces on or off the field, then you have to think about the collateral damage and the possibilities of that. And so potentially very complicated and or muddied, murky problem, issue, which means it's complicated, muddy, murky, potential solution for all of those pieces. So, we will see. I like what Autumn says here. Autumn says, I just want the team to be happy together and playing well and being friends. That's what I would love. Everybody love everybody, like Will Ferrell says in semi-pro. Justin coming in saying, I'm confident he'll be back by training camp. I know the chat has been blowing up, so I'm going to start to bring in a lot of pieces now. Oh, we got to stop because we got a super chat. I got to go to the super chat. Where is the super chat? Y-Town's King, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the super chat. Y-Towns, appreciate the hell out of you. Y-Towns King says, I think he needs therapy. Disgruntled multi-millionaire. Nobody gets everything they want on their job, especially when you're not the face of the team. I try not to pass too much judgment on people like in their job, especially professional athletes. Like I know how well they're paid and I know their celebrity status, but at the end of the day, they're still just people who have jobs. Their jobs just happen to make them celebrities and famous and pay them, buku bucks. But I think of, kind of alluding to your point here, like nobody gets everything they want on their job. But how many times have people been like, you know what, like I'm pissed at my job. I'm not going into work today. I'm calling in sick, right? How many times has anybody done that? Has anybody been, whether it's your career or whether it's a job when you first started out, anything and everything? How many times have you called out for just something that seems like minuscule now when you look back on it or even think about it now, right? Maybe Diggs had one of those days. He's pissed at his job, so he called out today. And I'm not saying that's okay. I'm not saying that's acceptable, but sometimes people have those days. Like dude's a human being, and sometimes human beings just have those days. But his job just happens to be in the spotlight and in a sport where people demand answers and productivity and they demand accountability because they're fans of all those things and it's a high profile business. But, I recognize the comment and I see it and I feel you on it. Let's go back. Man, chat is jumping as I thought it would be. Where are we going? Where are we going? Oh, Y says he'll be there tomorrow per his agent, but said there's an issue. Yes. So his agent did say, you know, going back to it. Yeah, there's an in-house situation that they are on the way to resolving. He said he'll be in Buffalo. He'll be present. We'll see if he attends. We'll see if he's at the facility tomorrow. We'll see if he practices. Again, he was at the facility today and yesterday. He was at the facility literally this morning and then left before practice started. So, not great. Not great. Not great. Tim saying everybody freaking out is a bit understandable, but he was at the facility, met with the head coach and GM, isn't in the media taking shots at the org or teammates. Let's all just take a breath. Fair point. And a bit of levity there from Tim. I think on the flip side of it, though, if he has been meeting with McDermott and Bean and has been in town and has been speaking about these things and didn't come to practice today, what is holding that up? What is the issue? What were they trying to resolve behind the scenes? What is that in-house situation that they were on the way to resolving? And if he's not at practice today, which he was not, did he feel like they're on their way to resolving that? Did he not like the way that they're resolving it? Does he not think that they're close? Like, what do the two sides look like? And maybe that's why McDermott said he was very concerned. Maybe McDermott thought, everything's going to be cool. We met, we spoke, ship shape, we're all on the same page. And then Diggs doesn't show up today, and maybe he was surprised by that, and maybe that's why he's very concerned. So it's tough. You can look at it on both sides. You could panic, or you can think everything is sunshine and daisies. Ooh, it's a tough situation. It's a tough situation. Oh, Steven says, I know I'm kind of backtracking here as I had said a lot of these things, but Steven saying, is Chad Hall part of this conversation? Could be. Maybe Diggs loved Chad Hall. But again, Chad Hall wasn't forced out or let go. Like, he left for another opportunity. I don't know how much of that was Hall being unhappy with what was going on at the team. And maybe there was some, under the radar motive potentially for Hall leaving, and maybe Diggs is pissed with it. I know Diggs was a big proponent of Chad Hall, as a lot of the receivers were. He was well respected and very well liked within the team. So it could be. And as Steven says, yeah, I just don't get the end game here for Diggs. And I think that's the point, right? If it is football related or it's not football related, what's the issue and what is his resolution? What does he want? And again, Josh Allen saying, working on some things, they're not football related. I don't see how what the issue would be if it's not football related. In some way, it's going to trace back to football, unless it, again, is, not that football is in real life, but like a real life, not football related issue. Maybe he's got something going on with himself, family, friends, loved ones, something like that. Maybe he just didn't feel like he was mentally up to practicing today. Maybe there's something going on. Could be, again, we're reading between the lines for a lot of it, which, again, makes it tough. What else do we got? Oh, good comment here from Autumn saying maybe Diggs wants his voice to be heard in the game planning and the offense in general. That could be. Maybe he wants, again, Allen saying, incorporate, he's somebody that we need to incorporate a little bit better in what we're doing here. It's just tough because, again, if you're putting a game plan together, and again, Diggs is awesome. He understands the game. We know how he sees it. We know how hard he works and how good of an individual player he is. But then what kind of future expectation does that set? If Dawson Knox gets upset next offseason, do you have to bring Dawson Knox in to let him be heard in the game planning and the offense in general? Like, where do you stop once you open that door? Not to mention the short-term effects of, I don't know, say Diggs did want that. What if he sucks in terms of the game planning? What if he's that guy who's throwing out ideas in the group and everybody's just like, ugh, has to roll their eyes because every idea he throws out is terrible? It's, again, tough. Beta Jim says he just didn't practice today. He was at the facility talking to them. Yes, he was there this morning. He left before practice happened. Oh, see everybody arguing about the pieces of practice. Yeah, again, it's tough. And we'll see what happens in the coming days. For all that we're talking about right now, we could be sitting here saying, oh my goodness, like, is everything okay? Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? We could be sitting here tomorrow night And this could be a non-issue going forward. Maybe he attends practice tomorrow. He says what's up. He talks about why he was absent, and we go from there. But until then, speculation. I appreciate you, Billy. Billy saying cover one, my only Bills dose of reality. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. And yeah, as Justin says here, we just need to see what happens tomorrow. This is going to be one of those things where we take it one day at a time. Everything right now is really speculative and trying to piece together breadcrumbs and putting puzzle pieces together. And especially for someone like me, who I'm you folks know I am X's and O's, an on the field guy. I recognize what happens off the field and how it, funnels into what we see on the field, but I'm scheme and X's and O's and breaking down what happens on the field and connecting all of it, schemes, concepts, the hows and whys behind the game, and how it's played. And I respect the on the field stuff because, again, it's an important piece of what happens on the field. So I recognize that pipeline and how it flows. But I'm not big into the speculation game and, listening to a press conference and trying to piece together what somebody really meant and reading between the lines. But this is a significant issue, especially because, say Diggs is that, unhappy with the organization. It's not like the Bills can just easily cut him or trade him given the dead cap that they would incur with his extension last year. So if he wants out, or if there's some situation where positive resolution is not possible, it's a really bad look for this team from an optics standpoint, but also from a nuts and bolts brass tacks perspective, financially. And then again, just from the on the field piece of you're losing one of your best players on the entire team. So Brian saying, yeah, his agent said he'll be there tomorrow. I thought so. We shall see. Yeah, he said he'll be present, or I forget the tweet from Adam Schefter. I can actually pull it up right now. Here is Adam Schefter's tweets. Of course, when I want to find it, I can't find it. But yeah, Diggs's agent alluded to some piece of that, saying that Diggs would be present for camp. There it is. Diggs's agent said his client is in Buffalo, has been in Buffalo since yesterday morning, took his physical, met with the head coach and GM the past 2 days, and the Pro Bowl wide receiver, quote, will be there for the entirety of minicamp. But now, if you want to play devil's advocate, right, the agent just says he'll be there for the entirety of minicamp. Okay. Maybe he just meant in Buffalo. Maybe he just meant at the facility, not practicing. Maybe, again, we could, if we really want to split hairs, we could do this all day. I appreciate you, Brian. Yeah, I had this tweet up earlier and then I closed it out. And of course, I wanted to find it immediately. It took me like 5 minutes. But again, maybe the agent just meant in Buffalo. Again, he was there this morning. He was at the facility. He left before practice. So, and as Lowe points out here, being at camp doesn't necessarily mean he will participate. So that's another piece, right? If he's there, why is he not practicing? What's going on? Drama. Oh, Sarah says, I'm only panicking because I'm afraid we're going to keep catering to him and digging a deeper and deeper hole. That tweet from Schefter was Diggs' agent attempt at damage control. Could be. And look at all of us swimming, stirring the pot in the speculation season around Stefon Diggs. So again, it's going to be one of those things where if you're waking up tomorrow, you're checking everything. Was he present at camp? Is he practicing? Is he on the field? Is there video of him practicing? And then it's going to be, if he's on the field, okay, what's his body language look like? Is he a full participant? Does he look happy? Is he dancing to the music? Like, what's going on? Is he talking to players? Who's he talking to? Who is he not talking to? What is he talking to Allen? Do they seem cool? Do him and Allen have a beef? Round and round we can go. But again, I don't like to jump on the speculation piece. Myself and Eric Turner also spoke about this earlier today. We went live when the news broke. Normally I'm not into the speculation season, nuts and bolts, but given the gravity of this situation, thought it was important to lead off the show talking about that piece. Now we're going to pivot to the meat of the show, the Josh Allen run game in the Buffalo Bills offense. Actually, before I do that, let me bring up the sponsor, who I mention every week, One Pie Pizza, the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. Online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or any one of the podcasting apps or platforms. Go in there, tell them Disguise Coverage sent you. Delicious sweet sauce pie, cup and char pepperoni, homemade blue cheese. I talk about it all the time, how great their food is and how good of, what kind of human beings they are with the drives and initiatives they do for the community and the city of Buffalo yearly, year round. They're great people making great food. Go get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Treat yourself, your taste buds, your family to some great food, and also do some good for the community while you are at it. Okay. Josh Allen. The Josh Allen run game in the Buffalo Bills offense. So this is a piece, again, I mentioned earlier, this was going to be the sole focal point of this episode, but then the Diggs piece happened, so I wanted to talk about it a little bit. The Josh Allen run game is something that gets talked about every season going into the season. It gets talked about during the season, especially in big games, like how much should the Bills rely on it? How much of the design run game should they lean into? You know, Josh Allen is a unicorn of an athlete. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic, he's fast, he's mobile, he can shake linebackers in the open field. He can outrun defensive ends. He can truck defensive backs and change angles because he's still athletic and speedy. So he's one of these unicorn kind of guys. And again, like I mentioned, going into the season, preseason, in season, somehow we always get onto this conversation and topic of the Josh Allen run game in the Buffalo Bills offense. And like I mentioned earlier, so we're going to dive into some advanced metrics and some game tape with Josh Allen. And the big thing I wanted to hit on initially and really going into this episode here is the success rate on design runs versus scrambles has been vastly different, and I think rightfully so to a degree. So it's not uncommon for a quarterback to have a better expected points added EPA per attempt on scrambles than on design runs. Again, it makes sense. You know, when a quarterback scrambles, it's a pass play. So maybe the defenders have their backs turned to the QB while they're in coverage. Maybe the rush lanes break down and the defensive line loses pass rush integrity. And when a mobile quarterback has either of those things happen or a multitude of other things happen, they can scramble and the payoff can be significant. But significant differences between the Josh Allen design run game. So again, your quarterback power, your QB pin and pulls, your quarterback draw versus a QB scramble, which is he drops back to pass. And for whatever reason, he takes off and he runs. Those two things need to be put into separate buckets. I think a lot of times it just gets talked about as, okay, the Josh Allen run game, like run him. But there's a vast difference between what he is on the ground as a design runner versus what he is as a scrambler when a pass play doesn't work or the pass play breaks down. So 2022 alone, expected points added per attempt on design runs in 2022, Josh Allen had a negative 0.15 EPA per attempt on 45 design runs. That was 10th out of 17 qualifying quarterbacks. His scrambling EPA per attempt was positive 0.52 on 59 attempts. That was 4th out of 37 qualifying QBs. So that's a huge difference. Design runs, negative 0.15. Scrambles, positive 0.52. Again, somewhat explained by when quarterbacks take off, when they scramble, mobile, especially mobile ones, it's usually really advantageous. Think about the plays that Patrick Mahomes makes. Think about Jalen Hurts is a bit of a different runner because of what he can do in the design run game and how the Eagles work. But think about when mobile quarterbacks really get you. Again, Mahomes is the greatest example. He's not having all these design runs against the Buffalo Bills. How many times has he killed the Bills because he drops back to pass and there's nothing there and he breaks contain and he scrambles? He does it time and time again, injured ankle or not. And so we look at that big discrepancy again, 2022, positive 0.52 EPA per attempt on scrambles, negative 0.15 on design runs. 2021, similar story, less of a discrepancy. 2021 scrambles, he was a positive 0.49 on 53 attempts, which was 4th out of 37 qualifying quarterbacks again. But in design runs in 2021 under Brian Daboll, positive 0.16 on 52 attempts. So 2022 design runs, EPA per attempt, negative 0.15. EPA per attempt in 2021, the season before on design runs, positive 0.16. So a 0.31 differential. That is huge from, percentage point standpoint. And that positive 0.16 in 2021 was 2nd out of 13 qualifying QBs and 2nd in the entire NFL amongst 82 players with at least 50 carries. So the design run game for Josh Allen in 2021 under Brian Daboll was hitting. And if you think about it, go back to that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game when they were running QB pin and pulls and QB powers and QB bash, and it was really working, and Allen got things going on the ground, which is understandable given Brian Daboll's background and just experience overall. But that season was really an outlier from a design run standpoint. In 2020, Allen's EPA per attempt on design runs was negative 0.20 on 44 attempts. That was 8th out of 13 qualifying QBs. So from 2020 through 2022, the 3 big seasons for this offense and for Josh Allen, 2 of those being under Brian Daboll, Josh Allen's EPA per attempt on design runs, 2020, negative 0.2, 2021, positive 0.16, 2022, negative 0.15. So that design run EPA per attempt really had a high in 2021, but 2020 and 2022 were kind of similar. You look at his scramble rate, you had improvement every single year. 2020, he was flat, even 0.00 EPA on scrambles in 2020, which was 24th out of 30 qualifying QBs. But in 2021, positive 0.49, 2022, positive 0.52. Each of those years, he was 4th out of 37 qualifying QBs. And the qualifying metric I used there was 10 or more attempts. So again, Josh Allen has been a very effective runner for the Bills. He's arguably and probably been the Buffalo Bills' most effective runner, but a significant portion of that in 2022 was tied to his ability to scramble more so than it was the design run game. So I wanted to lead in with some of those metrics and some of those pieces and then tie into some film that we're going to go through now. Oh, there's a super chat. Sorry, I see it. I have to go back to it. Calgary Mafia saying, Anthony, your delivery is very natural. Well done. Appreciate you. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the super chat. I like that. Thank you. Oh, and Sarah comes in. So this is one, before I get to the film, someone always makes this comment in some way, shape, or form, not necessarily the one that Sarah's making, but kind of the lead into it, saying, yeah, Josh got hurt in the pocket. I don't want him lowering his shoulder and initiating contact, but you take his legs away and he's a sitting duck. Lamar Jackson also got hurt in the pocket, for those who don't know. And I think this comment is spot on. Like, the Josh Allen run game is extremely important. I want to see improvement with the design run game, which we're going to look at on tape in a little bit. But his legs are so important, especially with the passing game. His scrambles, again, his EPA per attempt on scrambles has been tremendous. And it's a huge part of the offense. It's a momentum killer for defenses. It's another card that can be played when the pass doesn't work. If the route distribution doesn't work, the concept doesn't work, the defense has it covered. Josh Allen kind of has that get out of jail free card that can make you right even when you're wrong because of what he can do with his legs. I just think, to Sarah's point, he has to get a little smarter when he's out in space. It's awesome when he trucks a linebacker or he leaps over a linebacker or he trucks a DB or stiff arms a DB. I used it for the graphic here. Him stiff arming the hell out of Nick Scott for the Rams last year in week 1. But even in week 1, even though there's a low percentage of getting hurt and Nick Scott's a little guy, maybe you don't stiff arm him unless you absolutely have to. If it was 1st and 10 and you've already run for 13, 14 yards, yeah, you can stiff arm this guy or run through him and get an extra 2 or 3, but maybe just slide and protect yourself. I think he needs to learn more of the break glass in case of emergency running aspect of his game when there is the emergency, instead of always being balls to the wall 100 miles an hour 100% of the time. It's awesome. It's admirable. It makes for great highlights, but there is that risk factor involved, as there is with just being on the field at any point. And again, to Sarah's point, he got hurt against the Jets because Bryce Huff came around the edge and hurt him while he was in the pocket. So, we'll see what happens going forward. Whatever. Autumn saying, I would rather Josh scramble than just stand there and get demolished in the pocket. Absolutely. What else? Okay, cool. So let's dive into some of the film here now to break down these pieces. So the first piece I want to show is we're going to look at the scrambles first. Again, Josh Allen, very successful from a scrambling perspective in 2022, plus 0.52 EPA per attempt, which was 4th out of 37 qualifying quarterbacks, and put him towards the top of the league in terms of EPA per attempt. Majority of, if you're including quarterbacks, the top 8 EPA per attempt generators last year were all quarterbacks. So your Lamar Jacksons, your Patrick Mahomes, your Jalen Hurts, your Josh Allen, these mobile guys. And then 10 out of the top 11 were quarterbacks. So Kyler Murray was in there. Taysom Hill was in there, even though Taysom Hill is kind of like, how do you classify him and how do you quantify him? Because again, scrambles make a big difference when that's again, that trump card is that get out of jail free card for offenses. If you have that mobile athletic quarterback, he can make you right, even when you end up initially being wrong, given what happened from a play call perspective. So now let's share the screen here. I'm going to bring up my trusty huddle tool. And so again, this first one, have it labeled here. This is nothing crazy. This is a Josh Allen scramble, right? This is the piece that I just wanted to highlight. It gives the basic notion of why scrambles generate such high EPA and why they can be a backbreaker for defenses. So on this one, Minnesota plays coverage. They match the routes, but there's a good pocket that's formed and Josh Allen can take off. And then he's in the open field. Usually when he gets in the open field and he scrambles, this is a huge piece for him too, right? He's usually either facing a linebacker that he's more athletic than and he can shake or outrun, or a defensive back that he can power through for some kind of extra yardage. Here on this one, he powers through linebacker Eric Kendricks for about an extra 7 yards on this play. So let's go forward here. Let's watch what we got going on. So again, drop back. This is a nice pocket. You see what we got going on here. Nice pocket that's formed there. Allen can sit. He can see what's going on. But everything's kind of covered. He's got nothing down here. McKenzie's coming here on this over. Safety's driving on it. Doesn't really have anything there. Covered here. He's got his 2 underneath options and kind of the no cover zone areas for the defense. But as you see, defenders are kind of beelining to both of those guys. So if he's looking at this, there's all this space, it looks like, for him to scramble. And then as the play continues and develops, he sees it. Again, Kendricks goes out this way, and it is just so inviting for Allen to attack this spot. He's got a one-on-one opportunity on the outside, and he takes it. This is the picture-perfect example of what Allen can do with his legs. Outruns the defensive lineman, puts a shoulder through Eric Kendricks, carries him from 7 yards. Boom. Big gain. Look at it from the end zone angle. There is nobody there. And this is also a big benefit, too, of what Allen can do with his legs from an offensive line standpoint. Just give him a halfway decent pocket. He has very good pocket manipulation and navigation to step up, avoid, slide, anything that he can do. He can make throws off platforms. So even in the pocket, he can make you right even when you're wrong. But in this instance, the offensive line did a good job, but guys are covered downfield, which happens, right? This is also why scrambles can work. Like sometimes you just get outmatched on the back end. The defense has a great call, or they anticipate the right way, or maybe you don't execute properly in the routes. Maybe it wasn't a great play design. Maybe it wasn't the right time for that play call, whatever have you. But there's good coverage downfield. Again, I want to show it from the sideline angle like I showed. This is good coverage from Minnesota. Like, you did a good job if you're the Vikings. You're sitting here looking at this and being like, yo, we did it. We just gave, this is Harrison Phillips right here, I believe. He just takes that inside route, and you see it happen all the time. You break contained, that B gap opens up, but Allen goes around the outside through the C, outruns a man, goes to a linebacker, carries him for a little bit. Beautiful. Again, one more time. This is why scrambles, you see Lamar Jackson do this. You see Jalen Hurts do this. You see Patrick Mahomes do this. Kyler Murray does it all the time. Aaron Rodgers used to do it all the time. Ben Roethlisberger would do it a bit. That ability to just create something off script. And this is why it kills you. Also, in the perspective of what I mentioned before, right? So look when Allen takes off. Part of the reason why scrambles are such huge generators of EPA and are backbreakers for defenses, look as he starts to run here. Kendricks has turned and is matching Knox, right? Because that's his coverage responsibility. Everyone else has flowed this way with their coverages and with their routes if they're the Minnesota Vikings. So literally, between the numbers here, not even between the numbers, like on this side of the hash, there's literally only one Minnesota Viking defender. It's literally only Eric Kendricks. There is no one else. Why would you not scramble? So this is perfect. This is what can happen, and why EPA and why success is generated off of scrambles, especially for someone like Josh Allen. Protection was good. You sort through it. Coverage was good on the back end. Tip your cap to the defense. Escape out the back door. Run. This is why scrambles work. Defenders in coverage have to cover their man. They cannot sit there and cover their man and keep an eye on the quarterback. Sometimes you have to turn and run with your guy. Sometimes your head is turned to the side, and all of a sudden you played coverage and it worked out, but now you're vulnerable versus a mobile quarterback. That is the duality of man. That's not the proper uses there, but in a nutshell of why you want this type of quarterback in today's NFL. You can create plays off script with your arm from the pocket or outside the pocket, or you can just take advantage of, again, defense playing well, but because they played well in coverage, that makes them vulnerable to a quarterback scrambling and running if the rush lanes don't maintain integrity from the defensive line, or if the pass protection is great and the quarterback takes advantage, right? Allen keeps it. There's literally only one player here on the entire side of the field to the left of the hash. So he takes off and gets a really good gain. This is a 20-yard gain on 1st and 10. This was in overtime on that drive that ended with an interception to Patrick Peterson, unfortunately. Now, let's go to another play here. Let's go to what week are we going to? We're going to the home game against the New York Jets. So the Jets game in the back end of the year. And we are going to go to the second quarter to break this down. So another scramble from Josh Allen, this time against a defense that was a very, 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 very good defense last year in the New York Jets. Even when the Bills won in the back end of the year last year, the Jets played them tough. But again, here's another example. Josh Allen scramble, snaps the ball. Look what happens. Everybody's playing coverage. This is also 3rd and 15. So Allen gained 16 yards on this play, but this is a 3rd and 15. Everybody's playing coverage. They're playing back. You watch the Jets start out in a 2-high shell. Looks like they go to a single high cover 3 look when you have Joyner here who starts in a 2-high look, kind of buzzes down right here. So it looks like a cover 3 buzz they got going on here. But you watch. Everybody's dropping deep. Why? Because it's 3rd and 15. Everybody wants to protect. That's a horrible straight line. I'm not good at drawing straight lines. So that's as good as I can do. Everybody's protecting the sticks, right? So they're dropping back. And then what do you have out of the backfield? You have James Cook coming out of the backfield. So Quincy Williams right here, he's going to match James Cook coming out of the backfield. And watch that interaction right there, okay? Cook check releases. He goes. Boom. Look at the space. And look what you have going on here. So again, you have an instance where defenders are flooding to where the most receivers are. You've got your single corner on the bottom of the field matching Gabe Davis, but look where his head is. His head is on Gabe Davis as it should be in coverage, so he's not looking back to the quarterback whatsoever. Williams started going with Cook. He sees Allen start to run, but he's already committed to this point. So now when Allen takes off, he gets into a one-on-one situation with LaMarcus Joyner, and he jumps over him and gets the first down. That's wild. So now this is the play where I don't like it because it's risky, but also it's 3rd and 15 and he makes this move. He's not past the sticks yet. He has to get the first down. So he jumps over him, makes the play. But again, another example of why scrambles, and this I think is an important distinction we have to make when we talk about the Josh Allen run game. It's not necessarily the design runs that are the big killer. Again, the EPA per attempt, the expected points added per attempt, and in case anybody doesn't know that, I speak about it a lot on the show, but EPA, expected points added, the easiest way to think about it is everything that you do, how closer does it move you towards scoring or how further away does it move you towards scoring? That's all you have to think about. So a positive EPA means, things that you did increase the odds of you scoring points on that drive. A negative EPA means the things that you did actually hurt your team's opportunity at scoring points. So scrambles are a big, big generator of EPA, and especially for Josh Allen, his success rate and generating EPA per attempt, like we talked about before we started diving into the tape, when we just looked at the metrics, his EPA per attempt significantly higher on scrambles than on design runs. That piece has to continue to be talked about. So when we talk about using Josh Allen's legs, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be on design runs. We don't necessarily have to see QB draws and QB powers and QB bash. We don't necessarily have to see that. Some of Josh Allen's mobility and athleticism can be baked into the pass play, right? You can call these plays, and if you get proper protection from the O-line, which we're going to talk about in a bit, you can just take advantage of Allen's athleticism by building his athleticism and his mobility into these passing concepts. So don't sit there and think, oh, well, they got to call more design runs for Josh Allen. That's what they need to do. One, the EPA per attempt is vastly higher on scrambles than it is design runs, and just don't underestimate the value of the run game coming from scrambles. I know it's a pass play that leads to a run, but it's a significant portion. So again, it's this last little highlight here. Allen taking advantage. Again, defenders' backs are turned. They're in their coverage responsibilities, and now you create mismatches in the open field for Josh Allen. He can either outrun a linebacker or he can outrun a DB. He can truck a DB. He can truck a linebacker, depending on what your personnel grouping looks like. Again, here it is again. Allen sees the coverage, takes off, makes a play, boom, first down. And one that the Bills needed. 3rd and 15, he gained 16 yards. Now, we're going to go to another play here. So this one, 47 seconds left, as you see here on the clock. 0-0, 47 seconds left in the second quarter. Bills have 2 timeouts. It's 1st and 10 on the Jets 40. Again, Jets are going to play coverage. Jets aren't trying to give up the big play. Jets aren't trying to give up a touchdown. This play, ironically, would help lead to a touchdown because of how safe they played it. So we have another situation where Jets are playing coverage. They're dropping back. They're not trying to give up any deep plays, any chunk plays. They're not trying to let the Bills get a touchdown in this instance. They're trying to hold them to a field goal attempt in this game. And this one effectively works like a QB draw because the Jets play coverage given that situation. And again, Josh Allen takes advantage. So we snap the ball and watch Allen's reaction immediately. He sees how the coverage is working out against the route distribution. And what does he see? Space. Just tons of space again. He sees that right side get vacated. He sees 1-on-1 out here, and it's all DBs, right? We got a nickel corner. We got Sauce Gardner. We got LaMarcus Joyner, a safety, but on the smaller end, right? And there's only 3 guys out here. So Allen sees it, sees how the coverage matches out with the route distribution, takes off right away, gets upfield, shakes a guy, slides on this one. Nice play. 1st and 10, gains 11. Nice piece. This one, again, effectively works like a QB draw, but it's still a scramble. And this is, again, another benefit you can have. Your quarterback, you call a pass play, cool. The pass play works out. If somebody's open right away, if we look at it from the sideline angle, if this nickel corner doesn't work out, Stefon Diggs is here. Maybe he hits Diggs right away. Maybe Sauce Gardner misplays on Gabe Davis. He hits Davis on the route. Or, like we see here, coverage works out. So take advantage, run. Big play. 1st and 10, 11 yards, a new set of downs for the Buffalo Bills. 2 plays later, the Bills score a touchdown on the pass to Dawson Knox from Mr. Joshua Patrick Allen. So, again, that piece, wanted to make that distinction. The EPA per attempt and the success for scrambles versus QB design runs. We have that scramble piece for this Bills offense. So I wanted to drive home again. It's not uncommon for a QB to have a better EPA per attempt on scrambles than on design runs. It makes sense. Maybe the defenders have their backs turned to the QB while they're in coverage, like we saw with DJ Reed at the bottom of the screen. Maybe rush lanes break down, like we saw with the Minnesota Vikings in the first clip. And when a mobile QB has either of those things happen for them in their favor, the scramble payoff can be significant. But now we flip to the other side. So the design run game, again, your QB powers, QB bash, QB draw, whatever, not including kneels and sneaks because those kind of make things wonky. The design run game for the Bills took a hit in 2022. So again, the EPA per attempt on design runs for Josh Allen in 2021, positive 0.16. Which was 2nd out of 13 qualifying QBs and 2nd in the whole league amongst 82 players with at least 50 carries. So he had a strong year from a design run perspective in 2021. But like we talked about earlier, that dropped to negative 0.15 in 2022. So a 0.31 drop in change. That's significant. They went from positive 0.16 to negative 0.15. Some of that was predictable calls. Some of that was poor offensive line play. I'm going to share my screen again. And we're going to go again to that New Jersey Jets game, that home game this year. Well, this past year, I should say, in 2022. So it's 2nd and 20 right now. The Bills gained 4 yards on this play in a QB draw. I don't think the call is horrible necessarily in a vacuum. It's 2nd and 20. Defense is going to think you're going to try and pass the ball, get yourself out of this hole, backed up in the shadow of your own goal line. Cool, let's try and get some easy yards and try and take advantage of the defense playing coverage or maybe playing softer. Let's call it QB draw. But what happens on this play is 2 things. So 1, the Bills ran this play a bunch in the season. They ran it a couple times in this game. I'm going to show you 2 of them. So you're going to get the swing look from James Cook out of the backfield. He's going to come in motion, not in motion. He's just going to swing out of the backfield. And again, the Bills have done that before, so there's a little bit of predictability there. But they're going to run Cook on that swing. Allen's going to look towards him and kind of pump it, and then he's going to head right upfield. The Bills did this a bunch last season, so there's some semblance of predictability there. The Jets are ready for it. Quinnen Williams beats Roger Saffold, and even with the Jets kind of being ready for this play, if Saffold does a better job with his block, this could go for more than a 4-yard gain on this 2nd and 20 like it goes for. But that's the part with the design runs, right? More things have to work. You have to hope the play design is good. You have to hope that the timing of the play call works. And then you have to have the execution from a multitude of players. You need the supporting cast to work. If one player blows their block or one player missteps and has poor execution, that can throw off the entire piece for the play. And that's what happens a little bit on this one. So again, there goes James Cook. Here goes Josh Allen. He looks a little bit. CJ Mosley, no one is really phased by this piece. Look at the second level defenders. They're all just kind of sitting, chilling, not really threatened, not really phased. Allen takes off. And here's the piece. You have Quinnen Williams against Roger Saffold. Like I mentioned, Williams is already looking inside, and he's just waiting to see where Allen declares, shakes, makes the play. Look at it from the end zone angle. Again, not a horrible play call. Design QB run. Allen comes through. Williams is ready for it. Makes the play. So the problem you have on this design run, again, multiple pieces involved here. A bit of a predictable play call from Ken Dorsey in the offense. Poor execution up front from the offensive line. Those are your 2 in a nutshell on this one. And again, so much more has to work with a design QB run, the play design, the timing of the call, the execution from the supporting cast. Whereas on a scramble, you don't need as much to go your way. As long as your protection is halfway decent, you can make something out of nothing with an athletic QB. The route combinations could be awful. The route execution could be awful. But coverage players, like we saw in the earlier clips on the scrambles, coverage players still have to honor those awful route combos and those awful routes, and they still have to cover them, which gives you the opportunity for eyes to not be on your quarterback and for your quarterback to take advantage of that. Now, let's go to another play here. So this is, like we just showed on that previous play, right? That swing action from James Cook. Allen kind of pumps and look towards it and takes off. So that QB draw again. Now, this is a similar concept and kind of a similar or same design QB draw as I just showed on the previous play. Cook is going to swing out. Allen looks towards him, and it's a draw up the middle. Saffold gets beat again on this play, but Allen's able to use that, and he gains 8 on 2nd and 11. So very, very, very similar, if not the exact same play call. Bit of a different, window dressing here on this play, and you have slightly better execution, but a better play from Allen overall yields to a better result. So again, similar play. This is later in the game. This is 3rd quarter. Here goes Cook. Instead of being lined up in the backfield and then going in motion, he motions from out wide. Boom. Allen again looks, makes play, gets upfield. So again, what do we have on this play? It works out positively for the Bills this time, but it's similar to what we just talked about. Somewhat predictable play call, and then you have to worry about the execution up front. The one piece on this one that we did not see on the call towards the goal line that only gained 4 yards for the Bills, watch what the second level does on this one. So you have CJ Mosley right here. On the previous play, everybody just kind of pushed and widen when Cook went on that swing route out of the backfield. Watch what happens this time. Mosley honors it and kind of steps outside the hashes. Gives you a bit more to work with on the interior here. Gives you the opportunity for Mitch Morse to climb to the second level defender here. Allen can escape outside of Saffold there, and you have better numbers and from a math standpoint in the run and how it works here. So Mosley gets pulled out slightly from here in reading the action from James Cook. Allen takes up on the draw. But again, this is Allen still making a play. Like the execution still isn't the best from Saffold at left guard. Here's Saffold. You'd like to see him latch on a bit more here. Instead, he just kind of whiffs, gets beat inside. It forces Allen to have to be decisive early and make a cut. Morse did a good job climbing to the second level. Really good job from Mitch Morse with his athleticism. Let's look at it from the end zone angle again. Fast forward. Now we'll go slow-mo. Saffold goes for an early punch. Misses, just gets swiped by that defensive tackle. Gets beat inside, but Allen makes him right. Morse climbs to the second level. And there's Allen just breaking a couple tackles, carrying guys for some yardage, making you right even when you're wrong. But again, that's the example of more things have to work for you. More things have to work for you. Here's another one. QB pin and pull for the Buffalo Bills. So on this, it looks like Dawson Knox, who is right up here, attached to the formation there. Looks like he's not ready for the snap on this one. He reacts late, and he's not able to pin down the defensive end right here, Carl Lawson. Lawson's able to get penetration, and he forces Allen to kind of bow this run out and widen it and go towards the sideline instead of being able to get upfield sooner and hit the corner sooner. But again, this ties into something that we talked about earlier. One player can make a critical error in the design run game, and the whole play can get blown up. You have a little bit more flexibility on scrambles, which is why so much of the Josh Allen run game, I think the focus should be what he can do in the scrambling aspect of the run game than necessarily just the design run game, which I think gets so much of the focus. So again, here's Knox up top. Let's watch it. You'll see it more from the end zone angle, but I want you guys to be able to see how Allen widens here. So again, there goes Lawson, dives inside. Allen wants to take this here. If Knox can pin down Lawson here, Allen's able to cut right off his outside leg, right off his butt. He's able to follow Deion Dawkins. This is a 3rd and 3. They get -2 on this play. So all you need is 3 yards. If this works, if Knox can pin down his man and Allen can take this angle, you've got Deion Dawkins wrapping onto a DB. That's a mismatch. It's an easy first down. But again, like we talked about, Knox reacts a little late. Lawson gets inside, makes Allen have to take a wide lane here, and the pursuit comes for the entire Jets defense. Look at it in real time. Lawson beats Knox inside, makes him bow it out, rally and tackle, support. Good defense. Here again, we'll show it on this angle. Dawson Knox right here. That's Carl Lawson lined up right in front of him in a wide alignment. You see, Lawson's already diving inside and he's hard. He's hitting that gap hard. Knox isn't even out of his stance. And before he can even react, Lawson's already through. Blows this whole play up. One player's misstep or misfiring or misexecution blows this whole play up. And the Jets read and react and make an absolutely tremendous play. Create -2 on 3rd and 3. Now, I want to juxtapose this poor play with a similar call earlier in the year for a touchdown, also against the Jets. So we're going to go to the game against the Jets in New York that the Bills unfortunately lost. But I wanted to put that one with a very similar look that the Bills just had here. So similar look, again, if you folks can see, similar alignment, similar formation. What you have on this play is a bit different from what we saw on the failed one. This time, Dawson Knox is further attached to the formation instead of being wider. He base blocks his man, and he's able to turn him and seal the edge. So initially, we have Knox detached like we did in the previous clip that didn't work. Allen checks. Built in from the play design and the call from Dorsey, you see Knox up top. He reduces. Now he's attached to the line. The Jets are matching with man coverage. And this is a nice piece. So what also works with this, okay, like I mentioned, is the check from Josh Allen baked in with the design and the play call from Dorsey. The Jets show man. So Allen checks, and instead of the 3-by-1 with Dawson Knox detached, you get a trips look with Knox as the nub tight end into the boundary, which is a beautiful formation for running the football. I love nub tight end or nub, the 3-by-1 nub into the boundary, which is what you have here. And so that does two things. One, it creates an advantageous look in the run game with Sauce Gardner still lined up over Dawson Knox because he has him man for man. And now Sauce is forced to be a primary run defender if there's a run to that side. Second, it creates a numbers advantage because of the man coverage piece when Singletary goes in motion and pulls his man coverage linebacker with him, which reduces the numbers in the box that the Jets have. So it's a great check at the line, great build in from Dorsey, anticipating man coverage here from the Jets on third down and then using that against him. And like what we saw in some of the other plays, this one has that, that motion action from Singletary. We saw the Jets, the other clips we showed, they were in zone. They kind of pushed, they passed it off. This time it's in man. So you're going to see Mosley has Singletary. When Singletary goes in motion here, you're going to watch Mosley follow him and vacate, and you have an even further numbers advantage. And this leads to a 36-yard touchdown for Josh Allen. So let's watch all of it. Dawson Knox up top. Allen checks. Jets are still in man. Here comes Knox. He reduces down, attaches to the formation. Jets respond. They're still in man. There goes Singletary. There goes Mosley. Boom. Cake. Allen makes a move to make Whitehead hesitate downfield. Touchdown. Think of what we just talked about with the previous play that did not work. Lawson got inside Knox, blew this whole play up, and made Allen have to take this wide. And what did we talk about? Knox, you want Knox to pin this man down so that way Allen can kind of hit that corner on an angle and get upfield quicker. Let's watch what happens again. What also helps the motion, man reduces down. So now makes an easier pin. Look at Knox. Base blocks him and then turns him. So that way Knox's butt is into the hole, which is shielding the defender from Josh Allen, or shielding Allen from the defender, I should say. And now, all of a sudden, you've got Roger Saffold on Sauce Gardner, which, I don't care what you think of Roger Saffold or Sauce Gardner. That's a huge mismatch, especially in today's NFL where you can't cut anymore outside the box. Saffold leads him around the corner. Boom, takes out Sauce. Mitch Morse doesn't even have anybody to block. And then you get Allen in the open field. Dead legs a little bit on Whitehead, makes him stop his pursuit. Touchdown. Watching a fast motion from the sideline angle. And then we watch from the end zone. Again, there goes Knox. Reduces down. The edge is going to respond. You see the Jets even shifting. Sauce is honoring him. Look how juicy of a run look that is to the outside. Boom. Pin. QB pin and pull. Touchdown. With Knox being the pinner and Saffold and Morse being the pullers, but Morse doesn't have anybody to block. So again, look at here we go from the end zone angle. You see the check. Watch 52 on the right side, the right edge here. Watch him reduce down at the last moment. Watch him slide inside. Boom, right there. Makes the pin easier for Dawson Knox. That's what Knox didn't get to do against Carl Lawson. Base blocks him, turns him, that edge is sealed. And now, instead of the edge getting penetration and Allen having to round this out and trying to get upfield by having to go to the sideline first, he can take a more direct route and just follow his man. Right upfield. Boom. And that move in the open field. Real pretty, real pretty. So that's one working for the Buffalo Bills. We're going to go to another one now to show some success for the Bills offense in the design run game. This one, again, against the Jets, touchdown in the second game against the Jets later in the year. Little QB GT counter bash, aptly named because you're going to get the run action this way. So a guard pulling, that's the G. The tackle pulling with him, that's the T in GT. And you're going to get the counter look. And then bash means the back is going away from that run action look that you're getting from the offensive line. Real nice block from actually Saffold kind of kicking in and helping Deion Dawkins on this one. You're going to see Saffold loop around. He's going to hit Franklin Myers and push him in a little bit. And then Dawkins is going to put him on his ass. The run game for Josh Allen in the red zone was not very successful in 2022. Oof, we've talked about it before on this show. This one, I think, is where the design run game really needs to see an uptick overall. This is where Allen's legs should be the most lethal, make defenses have to account for all these pieces. So, see the back away. Allen keeps it. He's reading the front side here to the left. He sees the edge kind of surf technique waiting, so he keeps it, follows the pullers on the GT, and this is the man here. So Saffold's going to get a hand on JFM. Dawkins is going to finish him. Boom, boom, real nice. Allen sees it. Technically, Saffold and Dawkins aren't blocking anyone right now, but they're there, and so Allen, this is him, good vision as a runner, good athleticism in space. This is him realizing what he can do. He just follows it, goes straight upfield, puts his shoulder down, carries a man for a touchdown. This is, again, a piece that worked really well for them. This is where Allen's legs can present the most problems for defenses. It changes the math for defenses in the red zone. Defenses, they don't have the advantage in the red zone, but it can be harder for offenses, especially as you get closer to the goal line. There's less space to work. You're boxed in by the sideline. You're boxed in by the back of the end zone. There's not a ton of operating space. And then if defenses, they can just flood that space with defenders and windows get squeezed, everything gets tight, everything gets harder to kind of execute and live in that space. But this is a nice piece. But again, let's this is one that worked. Let's juxtapose this with what we showed on the scrambles where the defense was right. Minnesota had good coverage. The Jets had good coverage, but Allen just read it out and was like, okay, cool, I'm just going to run. He read it quickly a couple times against the Jets. He had the one against Minnesota where he let the play out, scrambled, took advantage in the overtime. These design runs require, again, good play design, not being predictable, not overcalling a certain play, good timing of the play call, and then the execution up front. Like we showed earlier on the QB draw, Roger Saffold gets beat. Play only goes for 4 yards. Dawson Knox is a little late on the snap. You get -2 on 3rd and 3. There's so many other things that have to work. Even we're highlighting Saffold and Dawkins on this play, but really, even just look at the pins from the right side of the line. Like, look what Morse does. Look what Bates does. You get a good step down from Morse. Look at the double team you have going on from Bates and Brown here. There's execution on that front side for them to wash everybody down. And then Franklin Myers gets popped. You get a defender who over pursues a little bit or kind of, tries to correct for that gap as JFM kicks inside. There's so many moving parts that have to work on these design runs. And if your offensive line isn't of that caliber that can execute these plays regularly, it makes it a bit tougher. That's part of the reason why I think the design run game for the Bills will get better in 2022. Because I think this offensive line is going to be better. Just with the addition of Connor McGovern, I think you raise the floor of this Buffalo Bills offensive line, and then we'll see what happens at right guard with the battle there between Osiris Torrance and Ryan Bates, and we'll see who wins out at right guard. But I think that design run game will get better because the offensive line will be better in 2023. And I expect Ken Dorsey to be better as well from a design standpoint, play call standpoint, and an overall feel for the offense, play calling, timing piece. So if you have better play calling, better design, better timing with better, more functional offensive line play, I think that design QB run game should get an uptick as well. And if we look at some other pieces as well, going back to is Josh Allen the most effective, Bills runner? If we look at the EPA per attempt of Josh Allen versus the running back. So again, on the year, overall scrambles plus everything, QB design, runs, sneaks, kneels, all that kind of stuff. Allen's EPA per attempt was 0.22. He was first on the Bills of the players that had at least 10 carries. He was also 7th league-wide amongst all players with at least 50 carries. And again, the top 8 are all QBs, and 10 of the top 11 are quarterbacks. Josh Allen was also first in positive play percentage on the ground as a runner. James Cook was second on the team in EPA per attempt at 0.02, 28th out of the players in the league for the entire league. Devin Singletary was third on the Bills, -0.06 EPA per attempt. Zach Moss was a distant fourth at -0.39. If we're looking at just QB design runs, Josh Allen was third on the Bills. Again, that EPA per attempt at negative 0.15. So he was behind Cook. He was behind Singletary. But if you're just looking at scrambles, again, that gap widens. His scrambling EPA per attempt positive 0.52. James Cook would be second in EPA per attempt at 0.02. So a huge difference, a 0.5 difference, almost a full percentage point difference between Cook and Allen on scrambles. Now, if you look at the Bills' rushing offense as a whole last year, I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I wanted to put it together. The Bills were 15th in rushing DVOA weeks 1 through 9. They were 7th in EPA per attempt in these weeks, but a lot of that was due to Allen. So in weeks 1 through 9, when they were 15th in rushing DVOA, they were 27th in EPA per attempt for running backs. Weeks 10 through 18, the back half of the year, they were 8th in rushing DVOA, and in those weeks, they were 8th in EPA per attempt for running backs. So weeks 1 through 9, 15th rushing DVOA. Weeks 10 through 18, 8th in rushing DVOA. Weeks 1 through 9, EPA per attempt for the running backs, 27th. Weeks 10 through 18, EPA per attempt for the running backs was 8th. And a lot of that was due to James Cook. Again, like I mentioned in a previous episode, James Cook, amongst the 57 running backs with at least 40 carries in weeks 10 through 18, he was 9th in EPA per attempt. That includes quarterbacks. So he was 9th out of the 57 players with at least 40 carries, weeks 10 through 18, he was 9th in EPA per attempt. Josh Allen was 12th. Devin Singletary was 25th. And if you're looking at just running backs, weeks 10 through 18, James Cook was 6th in EPA it was 6th in EPA, 3rd in yard per attempt, and he was 9th in first down percentage. James Cook started to really cook, no pun intended, a little bit down the stretch there. The Bills started to find something there with that mid-zone game with him. So I think the design run game for Josh Allen, like I talked about, should be better in 2023. A second-year OC and play caller in Ken Dorsey, what should be an improved offensive line from a quality standpoint with the additions that the Bills made in free agency and the draft. And then you have those pieces coming together with what should be a more successful running game. We'll see what kind of identity that run game has, again, depending on whether or not O'Cyrus Torrence starts. Like we've talked about, he's a different kind of cat on the interior than the Bills have had or currently have on this roster. So I think some of the play calls and identity of that run game changes if he starts at right guard instead of Ryan Bates. But the big thing to take away from this is the design run game for Josh Allen for the Buffalo Bills, that QB design run game, the Josh Allen design run game, however you want to label it, there's a lot of moving parts. It takes a lot for it to work. The timing of the play call, the design of the play call, the execution from the supporting cast in that play call. There's a lot of things that need to work. The EPA per attempt took a hit in 2022 versus 2021 when Allen was one of the biggest weapons in the design run game on the ground in 2021. But the scramble rate was strong last year. EPA per attempt, again, scrambling, vast difference versus the design run game, one of the best in the league overall. So continue to realize that distinction when you are talking about, we need to use Josh Allen on the ground more. We need to take advantage of Josh Allen's legs. Don't necessarily box yourself into the thought of, okay, we need to see more QB design runs. We need to see, guards and tackles and centers pulling. We need to see them leading Josh Allen. We need to see him snap it to Allen and have him, direct run, QB bash, QB power, pin and pull, all this kind of stuff. You don't necessarily need that to take advantage of Allen's legs, to take advantage of the Josh Allen run game, the Josh Allen ground game. The scrambles are a significant part of that. And if you're looking at it from a metric standpoint, are significantly higher when it comes to EPA that we're going to get from the design runs on the ground for a multitude of the reasons we talked about, both in terms of the cons of what the design run game, can be or what it needs in order to work versus what scrambles need to work. All you really need for scrambles to work is an athletic quarterback to read out what's happening in front of them, which the Bills have. And then you honestly having the defense play good coverage on the back end. You want the defense to play good coverage, to run with their man and turn their head away from the quarterback and allow your quarterback to take advantage. That's what you want to see. That's what you want to have. So you can kind of use the defense's strengths and strong execution or good execution. You can kind of use it against them and flip it. in order to have those scrambles yield bigger results and more positive results. And that's going to do it here for us on this episode. I know this was, again, an episode that started out with the Stefon Diggs piece and culminated with the Josh Allen piece. Before anyone leaves, I know, live viewers tend to kind of tune out or exit at this point. If you have not already, please, 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 and thank you, drop a like on this video. It goes a sincerely long way towards helping myself and the entire team to track and trend in front of more eyes. It affects the algorithm, pushes these videos and episodes and the channel to the forefront of the YouTube pages. So please, 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 and thank you if you haven't already, dropped a like on this video if you enjoyed this content. Thank you very much to Whitetown's King, Calorie Mafia, for the super chats in this episode. I appreciate you folks. And yeah, bit of a different spin on this one. With the Stefon Diggs piece today, thought it was a little important to dedicate some of the first portion of this episode, or the first third or so of this episode, into that piece. And especially as more news circulated throughout the day, myself and Eric Turner, again, gave it immediate instant reaction once the news dropped this afternoon on the Cover One channel. Go and check that out. Kind of talked about what it would mean for Diggs going forward, what it means for practicing and for minicamp going forward, and all those pieces. I didn't want to rehash that on tonight's episode, but given the press conferences that happened after we went live with that, given some of the information that started to come out and be disseminated after we did that episode, I thought it was important to recap it a bit on the beginning portion of this episode, even despite the fact that I don't like speculation at all. But nonetheless, so that's why we did that in the forefront of this episode. And in the back end, something that I'll probably return to as this offseason goes forward, and this in season. I just really wanted to set the tone and foundation for you folks with this Josh Allen run game piece, in terms of making the distinction between the design run game versus the scrambling aspect of Josh Allen, and what that looks like from a success rate, from a metric standpoint, but also putting it together with what the tape shows, kind of giving you folks a complete picture in terms of why things work the way they do, or why they don't work the way they were intended to. So that's going to do it for us here. I appreciate the kind words coming in the comments. Thank you, folks. I'm glad you enjoyed the content and enjoyed the episode. For everybody who rode with me live here on this episode, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. I talk about it all the time, and I say this, that I talk about it all the time whenever I don't have a guest on the show and I'm solo. It's awesome to see, viewers here in the live stream and in the live chat, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns for myself, for each other, to see the chat just going and going and going, for all the back and forth with each other, the back and forth with myself. It makes me feel like I'm not alone, and like I have, however many other co-hosts with me doing this episode. So I appreciate you folks who joined me live. Thank you very much for joining me live. If you didn't join me live, that's cool. Thank you very much for your post live view, download, listen, whatever have you. Again, if you're here on YouTube, please drop a like on this video, whether live or post live later. If you are listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool too. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage on the podcasting apps. Drop a rating if you'd be so kind on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Feel free to leave a review. Real constructive feedback is always tremendously appreciated, as are the ratings and reviews. So please go ahead and do that. And again, if you're here on YouTube, drop a like, subscribe here to the YouTube channel for Disguise Coverage. I appreciate you folks more than you will possibly know. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I appreciate you folks bearing with me these last several weeks where, 2 out of the last 3 weeks I haven't done an episode, but I should be back to regularity here on Disguise Coverage. So I will see you next week live Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. And until then, be safe, be kind to one another, take care of each other. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show is. Word of mouth is tremendously appreciated. If you didn't think this show was awesome, I think that's your fault, and I blame you, and you should look inward within yourself and try and fix yourself and who you are as a person. I appreciate you folks. Godspeed. I will see you next Tuesday live, 9 p.m. Eastern. And as always, go Bills.